it's a really honor and a pleasure to be in such a wonderful conference room. The fresh, you can still smell the wood. It's really lovely. As the designer of this magnificent museum center is laureate of the Pritzker Prize, which is an equivalent of the Nobel Prize in the sciences, I'm pretty sure that also the acoustic is very high, and today when we will listen to the concert, it will overpass our expectations, and the reputation of this place will be spread out by each of us who will come back to the home university and so on. From the presentation and from my yesterday brief intervention, you've heard about, and you could conclude that it happens so that I have quite a long experience in the field of higher education. I'm an economist and I landed in higher education. I never thought that I will be interested. I was studying statistics, econometrics, and I really was convinced that I will be an economist and never be interested in higher education. But it happened so that I started to work for UNESCO, and I was really taken by this phenomenon, which is university, which is a lovely institution of our society. You also heard that I mentioned that the first international meeting on ranking took place in 2002. I had a little bit sentimental reaction when Professor Naval mentioned the first World Conference on Higher Education, and she said about declaration, about the points. I was involved in the drafting of this document, and I can tell you one thing: ranking was not mentioned there, not at all. So the phenomenon of ranking is a new one, so as is all the new phenomenon is having its Kinderkrankheit, as the German would say. There are certain shortcomings, and I will mention them later on in my brief presentation. So it's really a pleasure, and I will say this, repeat it, it's to chair this round table, which, by the way, we have, rankers of the principal major rankings, international rankings. As the French, they say it, responsable, coupable. So if you have any responsible and guilty for certain things. But they are not guilty, and they are responsible. As our conference is, the title of it is reputation, and its focus is the keyword of the conference, I thought that it's appropriate to see it as and it is ranking has the second keyword of the conference. I gave a title of my brief presentation that reputation is an intangible asset. It is very clear from the previous presentation that it's sometimes very difficult to put the number of it, but in the long run has a tangible asset, and that is something which we should keep always in mind, that we are living in a time when the certain things which we thought are intangible become intangible. The people from the corporate world know it very well. What is a tangible value of the corporations like Google or Facebook? And look at the tangible asset, which is the price of the shares on the stock exchange. The same we can speak about Coca-Cola, the fizzling drink, which is probably could be repeated, but the brand Coca-Cola is one of the most prestigious one and has a very, very tangible asset expressed in the billions of dollars and euros, and not less. So I just have here a few reflections on the reputation. That reputation is part of the academic corporate language. We like it, and it precedes all kind of the organized mechanisms for quality assessment, accreditation, peer review. Maybe peer review is the oldest type of the quality instrument. It is important in many rankings. Some of them even call themselves reputation, like the the Times using it is in this name. It is an important indicator. The QS is using also reputation part. So the CHE ranking and the Shanghai ranking use it as proxy of reputation. But it is the most contested one. Yeah, that's because of the methodological challenges which are related. Because it's very difficult. It's very difficult to, as the rankers are using the numbers, it's very difficult to squeeze something which is intangible to the actual number, and then there's some problem. But the reputation in ranking, the challenge of it is not the physical norm, it's not the number, but an inscription used as a common denominator of exceptional performance in the core areas of the university. But also we have to keep in mind that it is a contextual concept. You know, it will depend very much of the country, of the location, of the area, and it depends. Its value will be also dependent very much so on the situation. It has a different role in the recruitment. We've heard from Dr. Simpson just the excellent presentation about with regard to doctoral students, how important is ranking in their decision-making process in the choosing of the particular program or particular university. It has a different role in employment and different in the process of selection of the partners for the research and so on and so forth. But it's true. It's also true that it has tangible results. You know, there's in the number of students. I already mentioned the doctoral students, grants money, alumni donations, and last but not least, in the position in rankings. Why rankings, just as a brief, why rankings are accepted and why they are popular, and I even dare to say are relevant. Because the situation and I call it new paradigm of higher education changed so much. We've heard already in the previous presentation, so I don't have much time, so I just go very quickly. Massification, you know, it's phenomenon of the 21st century. You know, that's you've heard it was a reference made to the economists already in the previous sessions. One of the latest one, it was devoted to higher education, is that everyone goes to the university. You know, and there are even political programs that every young person should have an experience of the tertiary education. The program of the President Obama is a good example of it. At the same time, there's a diversification of institutions. Not all the universities are research-intensive institutions. We have all kinds of institutions. There's a competition. There's competition which was for the students, which previously it was in the national context. Now it is in the global context. Then there's an issue of mobility. The students are moving. That's what more than 20 million, and the projections are even that it will increase twofold in the next decade of the international students. There is again, we are the knowledge-based society or knowledge-dependent economy, as I prefer to say, is not an academic parlance, it is a reality. So therefore, and in the knowledge-based economy, the issue of brand, name, reputation is very, very important one. And then the last but not least is that the way how our societies are operating is that there's a social pressure on greater transparency and the relations between, consequently, the relations between university and society, university and the state are quite, I would say, based on the, yes, we trust, but we also want an evidence of your performance. Such an enthusiastic view about university, as we've heard yesterday from the regional minister, is I would say, as somebody also pointed out, is a unique, and I wish, you know, it would be wonderful if the ministers would have such a view as somebody who was working for the governmental organization like UNESCO. So you mostly, you for the most deal with the governments and with the ministers. And from my own experience is that it's rather rare case. And I wish that we would have a training for the ministers in which we would teach them a little bit more about that university is worthy their attention and a more positive view about than it is usually the case. In summary, and I cite my friend Simon Marginson, that rankings have become an inevitable part of a public life because universities have moved to the center stage in all modern societies. Universities became too important to be left only to the academics, and that's a reality. Well, if we move quickly to ranking, there are various types of rankings. Here I mentioned that we have those who are doing the rankings, I would say the most known and mostly cited rankings. But there are all kinds of rankings. Actually, there are some 30 types of rankings. And the most important one, and this is something which you should also keep in mind, is that from the point of view of the methodology which are using, is the rankings which are one-dimensional, so that you have like the Shanghai ranking, the assessment according to one set of indicators and weights attached to each indicator, and you cannot change it. And then there are multi-dimensional rankings in which the selection of the indicator is within a certain limits. You cannot invent your indicator and then ask for the result, but it allows you to give a preference and a weighting system. So if you are a student, you might have different preferences. If you are the employer, you have different preferences with regard to the importance of the particular indicator. And the results are different. Then you have, as I mentioned, international, global, international, regional, and national rankings. According to our count, the number varies because some rankings which appear once and some rankings which are more have a certain history. And we have an inventory, IREG Observatory, in which we have give a reference to more than 40 rankings in 35 countries, which have at least published 3 editions of the rankings. So there's a certain stability from their point of view. And then, of course, you have as an object of ranking, it's not only institutions, which are most popular one, but you have also the study programs. You have the very specialized rankings, like those for the business schools. And, well, as I mentioned yesterday, it's also very new ranking, which are the system-level rankings. Well, here you have a list here of the most frequently referred to rankings, and we are really, really privileged here that we have in the panel representatives of those rankings and so you have the list here, and I will skip this because this is well, I was asked by the organizers to concentrate on the criticism of rankings. So here you have a list of the problems which you have. There's a focus on the elite, research-intensive universities. They neglect arts, humanities, and social sciences. They use questionable methodology and collection of information, construction of indicators, arbitrary weighting, lack of transparency of work on the data, excessive reliance on reputation types of the survey, overuse of English. So all the issues are real. It's not that I would dismiss the importance, but you have to see them a little bit in the context, in this, that there are certain things which are difficult. You don't have the information, at least for the time being, in some of those areas. In some of those areas, it is difficult to actually come out with scripts, as I mentioned already yesterday, with the problem of assessing the quality of teaching, of the learning, this value-added element for the student coming to the university and living with it. What happens in this black box, which is a period of study? So that is something which is it is the list of challenges, I would say, more than just the criticism. A few words about the organization, which I am very proud to be the president. IREG Observatory, as the phenomenon of ranking is a new one, is a very young organization. Actually, IREG stands for is an acronym for International Ranking Expert Group. It was just a group of individuals like myself and a few other colleagues, and I see here from the founding members, I see Gero Federkeil, who was present at the time when we turned the informal group of enthusiasts about ranking. By the way, I entered into this area a little bit out of the frustration when I was asked to assure the follow-up of this World Conference on Higher Education, and it was a part which was descriptive part, and then I was asked, because of my statistical background, knowledge of those things, to have also the tangible measurements of the progress by the member states with regard to higher education. And it was really frustrating exercise. So, and this is at a moment when I came across of the first rankings, and it was of course national rankings at the time, because the first international rankings of the certain importance was the Shanghai ranking published in 2003. IREG Observatory on Academic Ranking is a non-profit membership organization. We have three categories of members. First is the rankers. Some of them are members of our organization. There are institutions like accrediting agencies, institutions which are collecting data about higher education and research, as well as universities. And I am very proud and very pleased that University of Navarra is one of those universities which are the member of IREG Observatory, and I'm very grateful to this university. We try to use it, I would say, it as a certain good practices, to deal with those challenges which I mentioned earlier under criticisms, and we try to use this. We are aware of that we also need to have in our own interest to have mechanisms for informing the general public about what rankings do and what rankings cannot do. And we had the first initiative was the so-called Berlin Principles, which are the first, I would say, the list of the recommendations, how ranking should be constructed, what are deontological principles, ethical principles, avoiding conflict of interest, and so on and so forth. This Berlin Principles have been translated in a number of languages, including Spanish and so on, and this is, of course, on our website. The second initiative is the IREG audit. It's an initiative. It's not the ranking of the rankers, of the rankings. It is a mechanism to verify the performance of the particular ranking vis-à-vis those principal Berlin Principles. And we already have, unfortunately, until now, only 4 ranking organizations passed this performance test, and 2 of them are here present. It's the QS, which was the first one, first international rankings, which got the label of our IREG quality label, and CHE, represented here by Gero Federkeil, national ranking, which also, I would say, is a regional ranking more than the national ranking. So that is something which is, from our internal point of view, and external, I hope so. Also, it has a certain reputation element. We hope that this reputation of having the IREG label will give a certain degree of assurance to the users, to the stakeholders of rankings about the credibility of the product. Last but not least, of course, I mentioned this inventory of national rankings. We are working on inventory of regional and global rankings. And we also have other projects like I would say the most important one, which is the guidelines for stakeholders of university rankings. At the forthcoming conference in Aalborg in June, 11 to 12 of June this year, hosted by University of Aalborg, we will present the guidelines for the stakeholders. We had find it out. It is a product of the 2.5 years of digestion, which included 2 open consultations. There's a steering group which worked it out, and these guidelines, we hope, will help the various stakeholders to use in their own interest about the way how to rankings can be used in the positive way. We of course are aware of the criticisms, but we want to have this little bit of the moving from the excessive doubt about what we are doing to a little bit more positive scenarios. And there are some other projects which I encourage you to go to our website and to see if you are interested. There's quite a dynamic one. You have the information from the world of rankings, what the members are doing, what the other organizations are doing, which are not our members. And of course, some of you who, if you would like to join the IREG Observatory, we would be very honored and pleased and to welcome you at our meetings. We also have our, as we've heard in the earlier presentation, we also have each year we have one big meeting. This year we have University of Aalborg, and which will concentrate on the subject ranking. So we have there's not only institutional ranking, but the ranking for the University of Navarra is very strong in medicine. The assessment of the medical schools, which have usually the clinical hospital, is very different than, for example, the humanities. So we have the set of sessions for various group of disciplines. And this will be very interesting because we are bringing the people from the outside of our ranking milieu who are assessing the hospitals and clinical experiences. So our general conference will be in Lisbon, not far from here, and we are going to look if the rankings are enhancing international cooperation or they are a little bit hindrance because the institutions would like to collaborate only with those first 100 or maybe first 200, and maybe not neglecting those which are not ranked highly enough in order to be considered as valuable partners. I think that is a little bit in the international academic cooperation. It's like I used to be a tennis player. If you at my level, it would be frustrating if I would play with Nadal. It would be frustrating for both of us. For me, because I cannot return his ball, and for him, it would be even to serve to me. So I think that we need also to see it in this way that it's to partner. You have this. It has to be a balance. It's to see and ranking can help you identify those right partners for your level, for your taste, and for your needs. Well, I will change my hat now. I will chair the panel. Each of the panelists will have the brief presentation, like mine. And then we will return, so each will speak from here for technical reasons, and later on we will move to the questions and answer sessions, and I hope we will be a lot of questions. I was told that if there will be many questions, we can a little bit make our session a little bit longer until 12:30. And if you accept it, and those who don't want to, of course, they can always leave. But I hope that use this opportunity because it's not so often an occasion to meet such a distinguished panelist as we have today. Thank you very much.